Hi there. Today I'm tasting a wine that is really more a curio than anything. This is St Jerome's Matuka Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot blend. So a wine made in a traditional Medoc sort of style, but made in West Auckland by a small winery, St Jerome, which was owned by the Ozich family, and Matuka was the name for their top wine, in honour of the owner's father, Matuka Ozich, who presumably set up the winery, which was run subsequently by Miro and Davorin Ozich, his sons. And for many years they made wines from their small vineyard behind their home in the Henderson Valley in West Auckland. So an area that was quite popular with winemakers, particularly those of Croatian extraction, which is again quite typical of West Auckland's winemakers. Most of those small family businesses have grown, and a lot of them were the basis of some of the larger companies in New Zealand, now producing wine predominantly from Marlborough. So this is, I suppose, relates back to this Dalmatian heritage that the New Zealand wine industry has. Today, this part of West Auckland is housing. The vineyards are long gone. The winery was never a huge operation. It was some tanks outside the back of their home, and they had a couple of hectares of vines there. But they actually made some quite nice and quite age-worthy wines. This is 1999. And just to look at it really, I mean, availability would only today be through auctions, and then probably only in New Zealand. So it really is just a curio. But just to see how a wine like this has performed, whether it's been able to age or not over this period of 24 years. And to look at the colour, there's quite a lot of browning. I mean, at best that is a brick red to a more sort of nutty brown core. I can see some sort of slight sediment at the bottom there. So as the wines age, some of the tannins and pigmentations have fallen out of it to create a slight sediment. So I actually decanted this earlier to try and make sure as little of that got in as possible. So I wasn't hugely successful there, but looking at the wine, as I swirl it, it's not hugely viscous. It's I suppose the fact that its tannins have smoothed out mean that it's not got a heavy weight physically to create tears. The alcohol is 13.5%, which I suppose at the time was probably reasonably high, but is not enormously huge. And there are some tears showing there, but they're not showing particularly strongly. So let's have a look at the aromas. The aromas are really quite pungent. There are notes of development, plenty of that, sort of forest floor, dried leaves. There's a sort of a slight licoricey depth there. There are perhaps some notes of black fruit. There's notes of pencils, drying cedar and graphite. There's a savoury note to the whole thing. There are slightly lifted notes of leafiness and a tiny little touch perhaps of cassis coming through there towards the end as you look for it. It does need looking for though. So let's have a taste and see what we make of it. Gosh, that's a wine that is probably past its peak development, but actually it's very attractive. The tannins are smooth, they're fine, they're soft. There is that slight lifted, perhaps because of the acidity, slightly leafy cassis note behind it, and then overlaying that there are savoury notes of dried leaves, those sort of forest floor notes, mushroomy notes. There's touches of soy. There are I guess hints of that sort of the cedary note of oak there, and that's integrated with the flavours. But yes, sort of perhaps a truffly mushroom note. not unattractive, but they really are just the final vestiges of the primary fruit that was there. And as I say, there's this sort of almost a sweet heading for reddish sort of reddish fruit, but it ends up more as a sort of prune, and then the sort of the more savoury soy notes working together there. Finishes as sort of a slightly licoricey, slightly sort of jammy raspberry note. The wine is pleasant enough, but really more of an interesting drink than a particularly exceptional wine. I think it was probably at its peak 4 or 5 years ago. Has certainly not fallen apart. It's completely drinkable and really quite an interesting wine. Alas, of course, the winery is long gone. So yes, just in memory there of St Jerome, a small winery in West Auckland, and that was their Matuka 1999 Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Hope you find that interesting. It's something a little bit different. Please feel free to share the video, do leave your comments, but most importantly, do see if you can make some time to join us again for a tasting sometime soon. Thank you very much. Bye now.